letter A in disgusting Calibri. I hate Calibri. It's the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. But I decided to use Calibri to represent this letter, representing modern English, because today, in the modern English world, we're forced to use Calibri in Microsoft Word, even though everyone wants to use Times New Roman. But enough of my rant. In modern English, this letter, the letter which we call A, can represent a variety of different phones. A phone is a sound in its simplest element. A neutral vowel a mid-close front a, an open front ah, and a back vowel are just some of the sounds that you can have from the representation of this letter here, A. Now, of course, that last sound, it can be A. Well, thank you, English vowel shifting, for that one. This sound, A, is the sound used to represent the letter, to name the letter. Now, of course, there are actually even more sounds, phones, that I won't get into right now, but we'll talk about in other videos. Now, in Old English, the letter, which we can just call ah, it can be represented in a couple of different forms in Insular script, but we'll not get into Insular script quite yet. This has a short form, a short sound associated with it, which is much like Latin. It's usually basically the neutral but it can be a little bit different depending on the position of a word, some variation. And it has the long but it's not long in duration like Latin, not really. You see, even in Old English, the vowel lengths had more to do with lax in tense than duration. It is a lax tense difference that gives you the difference between the short O and the long O. The short O is called a open O by phoneticists. Now, for most American accents, the short form of O is not quite the open O, not quite O. In America, in our accents, most of our accents, we say on instead of like on. But in Old English, the short form is O, and that's called the open O. Now, you may, of course, remember that in our Latin pronunciation series, we mentioned that English usually diphonates the tense, the long form of the vowel that we're talking about, the back vowel. It doesn't actually do that, though, when you say roll. Sometimes the environment will kill the dipphonation, so you will have this tense, this long form, without the dipphonation. Of course, in Latin you have short and long just in duration, but in English we have this lax tense difference. So you see, in these Aryan languages, you have these developments. These Aryan languages develop short and long relationships, that is, relationships between phones, either with a duration relationship or a lax tense relationship. And you can think about your mouth, the way it feels when you say A or E versus something lax. Lax meaning closer to the neutral sound, That's tension. There is some duration difference in Old English, though, such as the difference between the short a and the long a. Although that also has tension. It is tension with a bit more duration. And you want to see my Latin videos for the history of those two letters there being written together. That's called a ligature. Anyways, this gives us a difference between each was and thuere. Now you should know or remember that thuere can either be indicative past or it could be the subjunctive past. But anyways, let's take that verb to be and conjugate the entire indicative past. Was, were, was, were on,